I am now co-owner of the Super Museum, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. I want to introduce my dad, Jim Hambrick. He's the founder of the Super Museum. He's known around the world by Superman fans. He's kind of the #1 guy, top dog. He's been collecting Superman for 61 years. And he's accumulated over 70,000 Superman items. Original costumes, prop pieces from all the movies, concept artwork, prototypes, original artwork. He's met all kinds of people in the industry. He was part of the original group, the founders of the San Diego Comic-Con. He was on the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce that did the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's who handles the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And he's been parts of all kinds of projects, Superman and non-Superman, and I'm proud to call him my dad. So I'm gonna start a video that just has photos rolling. And you guys are welcome to ask us questions. And he's got lots of cool stories to share. And if we're going too slow, just say move it along, Morgan. But we're here to talk for about an hour.
You guys having fun today? It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. I said this is going to be the best celebration we've ever had. And I think with the combination of guests and the weather and all of you, we're going to have a good time. So remember I said that.
This question is directed for...
Oh, I knew you'd have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
For one thing, I want to say thank you to, this celebration would not be a celebration if it wasn't for you two.
Thank
You guys have done so much. And you made us all feel like friends and family.
Yeah, you guys are definitely our family. We think of you as extended family, and when we're working on projects in the museum, we're thinking about how it's going to be.
We're always thinking about this 4 days.
Thought of during the celebration, how we know we're going to be shown appreciation, and it fuels the flame and makes us want to work hard to show something new off every year.
So Jim, can you tell us some fond memories that you have with Kirk Alyn?
Yeah, Kirk. I had a mobile museum, and based in Los Angeles for 15 years. Had the mobile museum out and about all over the country, and Kirk Alyn he was a trooper. He would show up and appear with the museum and sign autographs, and I used to make fun of him and tell him that the autographs are worth more if his signature isn't on it because he signed so much. But
Kirk really loved his
Kirk called me his long lost son, and he called me every single day for 15 years. Want my opinion on certain things. I got him gigs in commercials and different things like that, and the crowds loved him. He was given. You love this. His pictures were really expensive. They were $2 a piece. And I guarantee you he made more money off of $2 a piece than they do now off of $80 a piece.
Yeah.
So because of the quantity, and he had a good time doing it, and he was always there, always a good friend. And I know everything that, he came here during the Superman Comes Home convention. That was, what was that, 1994, I believe it was. And he appeared with Phyllis Coates, Tommy Bond, who was Butch from the Little Rascals, and John Haynes Newton was here. And he sat in the corner of his section with his girlfriend and cried. He said, "You're going to make sure that I'm not the Forgotten Superman." That was his subtitle, The Forgotten Superman. And he appeared and did autographs and talked about his role as Superman, and it was always a good time. It was always fun to listen to because he knew how to tell the story. He knew how to captivate his audience and so forth. But Kirk Alyn, and he didn't have anybody to copy except for the Fleischer cartoons. You know, they used animation for the takeoffs and the come downs or whatever in the flight scenes. But yeah, he was with me for all those years, and it was very sad when he was in there telling me that he was thankful that we remembered him, and we were going to continue to remember him. Kirk Alyn's a good guy.
Yeah, Kirk Alyn was actually the best man at my parents' wedding.
Yeah, he was.
The marriage didn't last, but that friendship lasted forever.
All right, I'm not getting into this conversation.
So yeah. What else? Let's talk about your time with Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, doing some convention appearances.
We did some convention appearances, San Diego Comic-Con, the major car shows in Los Angeles where they're showing off the new futuristic cars. And I've got pictures of your sister with Joe Shuster.
Yeah, sitting on his lap. And
giving him a hard time. So
yeah, leaning over the table. And yeah, we have lots of cool family pictures with Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
Well, we had them in different places in Los Angeles and so forth. And they were actually kind of scared because they didn't want their pension taken away from them, and there was threats made. And as it ended up, Neil Adams, who just passed away, was also the artist for all the things you see in Metropolis, all the Superman-related items, the image and all that. We all got together, and Jerry Siegel was delivering mail to the premiere theater of Superman the movie. And that did it. That's all it took, was a story like that. And he was delivering mail, and he had to swallow his pride and go into that theater and drop off the mail. And this was the creator of Superman, right? They sold the rights for $165. And I mean,
they're both at the age of 17 too.
Yeah, so they were the writers and the artists and everybody got together and boycotted a little bit there, and did it enough to where they got a lifelong pension and got some money, and the family got some money, and it got all worked out after years and years of, no, we're not going to help you, no, we're not going to do this, you made the deal, so what, kind of thing. And they were very cordial on towards the end with how that came about. But yeah, they were, and they knew about the museum, and Joe came with the museum, and they liked what was going on, and they didn't realize that the character had reached such status in the world. And yeah, so Jerry
We got
Siegel and Joe Shuster.
another question in the audience, Dad.
Yeah.
In the museum, you actually have some items from the Amazing World of Superman. I was wondering if you could tell us some of the history or any stories that you might have about the would-be amusement park. Sure.
Bob Westerfield, who made Metropolis home of Superman long before I got here, and he was a Minnesota Vikings football player, professional, and
He lived in the what's now the Riverview Mansion. That was his personal house. And one of our missions is to get a historical marker there as part of the history.
He got in touch with me 8 years before I got here and told me that if I showed up, that he would will to me everything that belonged to the Amazing World of Superman, including artwork from Kurt Swan and Wayne Boring and Beck and
So that Kurt Swan piece, your sponsorship boxes, if you're a Superman Celebration sponsor this year, it's the picture of Bob Westerfield with the painting behind him. It's on display in the museum right there in our Metropolis section. And that was one of the pieces that Bob donated to our museum. Because we're more of a continuation of the Amazing World of Superman. It was joined forces as basically super friends with the same mission. And we've been here now for 30 years. Yeah.
it's been 30 years.
And the Amazing World of Superman only actually lasted for 6 months.
Yeah.
But we came here in '93 and we've been
It
building.
took him a long
yeah.
time to talk me into coming here because I had a company, had 300 people working for me, and had a lot of other things going on. And I went ahead and pulled up roots, retired from that, and came here. And Bob and I had an agreement to what we were going to do and how we were going to base the souvenirs and tours and museums and all kinds of. They had all kinds of things planned. And he died 2 weeks before I got here, after working on it for 8 years, on what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And his family said, they had me to show up for the will reading after he passed away, and his wife said, well, he wants to will all this stuff to you, provided you move to Metropolis. So he got me even when he was gone, And I said,
So if Reverend Chandler, who dressed up as Superman, when they originally started this in Metropolis, DC Comics was so excited they sent a George Reeves costume. So if you look at those photos of
Reverend Chandler's wearing a George Reeves costume.
yeah, he's wearing a George Reeves costume.
And yes, I ended up with those from the museum.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and those are in the museum collection, not on display, but we have a couple George Reeves costumes within the collection. We have a brown and gray that we'd like to display, and then we have the costume that Reverend Chandler wore.
Yeah, so it's so that was the deal there, and I was there, and she had her sons and family members coming in from Germany, and a lot of her kids and stuff showed up, and they said, "We want you to have this," and I said, "I can't accept. I can't do this." And he said, "No, this is what he wanted. Your name is on the back of every one of these things, and it's going to you. But on one condition, you're moving to Metropolis." And that's how I got to Metropolis. And I decided early on that I wanted a place where people could meet, and it was more about the people than it was any of the stuff or any of that. It's a good driving force, but it belongs to all of us. All of us. I'm not going to be here forever, but I just want you to know that. That's the plan.
And that's our museum mission, is that the museum stays here in Metropolis to be part of the community after he goes and after I go. And I know Zelda wants to continue.
He started working the counter when she was 6 years old.
Yeah. Zelda, my daughter, she's here in the front row. Will you stand up, Zelda? She's very, very shy. But she made me very proud 2 weeks ago when she graduated kindergarten, because the principal went through all of the kids in the school and asked all the kindergartners what they wanted to be when they grew up. And Zelda said she wants to run the Super Museum, and she made me very proud. So
it runs in the family. We all have a good time, and when you guys show up, it's just great to see everybody. We've had a couple of years off because of reasons you already know about. We don't like to talk about all that kind of stuff because we like good news.
yeah.
And it's nice to be able to get together with all of you and talk and laugh and lie about your collections and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I like sharing this stuff. And it don't do me no good to put it all in a closet.
It's
So
very competitive.
I put it out here so you can see it and look at it closely and take as many pictures as you want. And because we all can relate to certain aspects of this character and what we do here in Metropolis to preserve the whole legacy of the character and what it stands for. We don't worship it.
It's not just our museum, it's that we have the fan community to work with. So we have people that contribute things and bring things. So when we do these panels and these Q&As, and there's people like John Field, who has hundreds and thousands of George Reeves photos, and there's people like Jim Bowers that work to preserve the history and legacy of Christopher Reeve.
And they do a good job.
We're proud to be a part of that community, that sharing community, that love for the character together, That's why we do what we do. Every day somebody comes in, and he always says, if somebody comes out and says, that was amazing, then he's done his job for the day. Just one person, being able to touch one person a day. And
we hear that word every day. that it's amazing, and so that leads us on the right track. And you guys did a great job too on the renovation of the inside of the museum with the new floor and the ceiling. And
So over the course of the past 2 years, me and my husband and our friends my friend Brandon owns a construction company, and we get people to volunteer and help us. And we gutted the entire gift store. Our building was built, the gift store side was built in 1909. We completely gutted the entire gift store, and we built it from the ground up. And when you go in there, it's completely revitalized.
It's an experience. Yeah.
This year, me and my husband, we took on the mission of disassembling the entire museum, and we laid flooring throughout the entire museum, and we've updated the electrical, and we're hoping to be able to add a working elevator and to be able to expand to be a two-story museum eventually. So I'm glad that we have support from our friends in our community that have supported our brick program. And
That's what it's here for.
appreciate that.
It's here for you to enjoy, and we're glad that you come out the way you do. And I'm looking at all these lines and all this. It's really kind of heart-wrenching, because what I envision, it's going way past any of that. And we're going to do the theme park. We're going to do that. That's going to happen. It might not happen while I'm here, but that's the direction it's headed.
We want to work with DC Comics, and we want to work with Warner.
And they want to work with us.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to build this community up, add murals, and be able to spread positivity through Superman and what that means, and always helping people and being a hero.
It's
in
all
your
about
everyday
hope.
life.
It's the attitude. You know what I mean.
Yeah, 12 months a year. Yeah.
Okay, I got a question for Jim. A few years back, when they released that film, that Hollywoodland movie with Ben Affleck, did you have some input into that movie?
Yeah, I did the consulting and came up with the 3 scenarios, and at the very end of Hollywoodland, if you notice, I got the final credit before it fades to black. Jim Hambrick, Super Museum, Metropolis, Illinois, home of Superman. So it was pretty big, but we needed that. And I helped with the design for the costumes and gave them the scenarios about what I think happened, because I'd worked on that case for 22 years.
So, funny story, when that movie was being worked on, I was working the museum. It was a Saturday, and we get a phone call at about 1 in the afternoon, and I answered, and at the time we lived above the museum, and I answered the phone, and I go, hey, Super Museum, like I always do. And the man on the other side of the line said, hello, this is Ben Affleck, and I'd like to speak to Jim Hambrick. And so I proceeded to race upstairs and grab my dad, and they ended up having like an hour conversation that day, and he called back a couple more times, and he wanted to have what the feel for who George Reeves was as a person.
They wanted his demeanor too, when they were fitting the costumes and the muscles, the padding muscles that he wore like George. George had sloped shoulders, so it was tough for him to look muscular when his shoulders were hanging down here, and they made special muscles for him. And he asked me, I don't know George Reeves, what do I do? Okay. Well, George liked to drink. He was kind of a womanizer. He liked to have fun. Just be yourself.
Also, I want to mention today is the anniversary of the unveiling of the Lois Lane statue, the Noel Neal statue. So today, 11 years ago, we unveiled the Lois Lane statue, and my dad was a big part of that project. He actually promised Noel years and years ago that one day you're going to have a statue to be remembered, and everybody's going to know who the first Lois Lane was.
Yeah, so she was very appreciative of that, and reminded me that I kept my word, and she appreciated that. And she saw it. She used to come up every Sunday, and I used to wait out there and watch her walk around the statue, because it's a little bigger than.
Yeah, it's 7 feet tall, and she was pretty tiny.
Yeah. But and this town loved her. I mean, she was the first lady of Metropolis. That's how she got the statue, and everybody loved her, and it was just great to have her here every year for, what was it, 8, 9 years?
Yeah, she was the first lady of Metropolis.
Yeah.
One other anniversary I'd like to mention, and I told John Field that I would make sure that it was brought up in some way, and this is my small way to bring it up. But this year marks the 70th anniversary of The Adventures of Superman, starring George Reeves, and that's what got my dad into Superman, and it really was his Superman. He's always going to be his Superman. And
Don't get me wrong,
George
I like
Shipman.
Christopher Reeve, but George was, I don't know, that's the one I grew up with, and so I kind of stick with that. And Christopher Reeve is a hard nut to crack, because that, even I showed up at a couple of commercials that he did in Los Angeles, and he was very appreciative and very respectful towards, what George had done with what he had to work with. And we didn't pay attention to that. I didn't care if he was hanging from wires. Even if I saw the wires, I didn't care. It was just, it took you there. And so we have fun with that still. And it's airing every part, all over the world, still to this day, every day.
Yeah. On MeTV, don't they play Adventures of Superman?
Yeah.
I got a
Mention,
question.
yeah.
Of the 3 scenarios that George died from, which one do you believe he actually died from?
Well, here's the secret you guys are going to learn today, maybe, is that George Reeves, his girlfriend shot him. And I ended up getting an audio confession from her, Leonore Lemmon. And so it's no secret anymore, but the scenario with the 3 stories, they wanted to do three different scenarios to see how it possibly could happen, so that they could give a choice to the audience, they said. And it got kind of silly when they threw some extra things in there that never happened. But Adrian Brody, that came from my scenario, because I was the one who did the investigation on the case. And I ended up on America's Most Wanted and all these different shows. Entertainment Tonight, they did a 2-hour special on the collection. Collector's Call.
Yeah, recently. So I was talking about MeTV. I was reached out to by MeTV, a TV show called The Collector's Call. If you look it up, I put our episode on YouTube, so it's easy to access. But yeah, 2020, during the pandemic, we did Skype interviews, and I did all the B-roll stuff. I was telling the guy that does the audio here, I took audio video classes, and I was like, I'm so thankful I did that, because during the pandemic, I filmed all of the B-roll. I ran the microphones for myself. I filmed myself at multiple angles so that they could put it all together and create an episode for us, because even though she was only 2 hours away in Nashville, we couldn't get together during the pandemic for that interview, for that episode. So it was a lot of work, and I feel like it came across very professional. and really proud of what we put together. It was a lot of fun, and to get to meet a fellow collector, their expert, and to have some of the things he had, and be able to share stories in between while we were filming, in between, like looking at what he had behind him. And yeah, we have a Supergirl costume as well. It's nice to meet another collector.
And a lot of the things, like watching episodes now, is a little bit different for me, because I have a lot of the stuff from each episode, So it's, there's my telephone, there's this, people like this and seeing this in the museum, So a lot of the stuff that you see in the museum, it's all authentic. George Reeves especially gets a lot of attention towards the amount of movie props and the amount of wardrobe and costumes that I actually have here for the museum. But just remember that it's not about me. I'm just a guy, I'm kind of a keeper. And once I'm done my thing and pushing it ahead, somebody else, hopefully family members, will take over and make it even bigger and better than it is. And you'll look back on this day 20 years from now and say, I was there in the beginning, and I appreciate that. You have to know that we truly appreciate you coming here, because you can go anywhere. And the way prices are with gas and all that kind of stuff, and you still end up, look at the crowd. I mean, it's crazy.
This is amazing.
And it's great, and it's amazing. So that's...
Okay, Jim, I have a question about your collections. It is amazing. And just two questions. First of all, what was maybe the hardest thing to get in your collection? And is there still something you'd like to add to the collection that's kind of been elusive?
The first George Reeves costume, the brown and gray, I used that for black and white episodes. And I got the flying pan to go with it. But that was the one that Cy Simonson gave to me. He did all the special effects. Paul Simonson, you'll see it on the credits. And he brought that over to me. He used to come over to my house. He lived in Arizona. He used to come out over to my house periodically. And I don't know how he ever figured out that I was home, because I was never home. But whenever he was showing up, I was home. And he'd bring in, the balsa wood baseball bat from the tour, and Gene LeBell, whose mother did the Olympic Auditorium for wrestling, and he was his trainer. And there was just a lot of things like that where Cy would show up and just give me a random box just full of props and things that were used. And he was kind of a pack rat, but he knew I appreciated the stuff. He showed up at my house and unveiled all these items from the series that he had saved. So but the brown and gray is I'm very partial to that, just for all the reasons, black and white TV and what it is and what it represented. And it was him in his younger days as Superman, because you can tell he got a little bit older, a little bit more puffy on the gut side, but that was George, and that meant a lot to me, especially with the muscles and so forth. So we don't have that on display. I don't put it on out there too often because I don't want the moths hitting it and having it fall apart.
So we have another question over here.
My question's kindly off the wall.
Yeah.
On y'all Ghost Adventures and stuff, what part of your museum would you consider the most haunted?
The most haunted? The second floor for sure. When we've done Ghost Adventures, because we had a crew in, and at first they just came through, just traveling through, because they do convention appearances. And he started talking with his amazing British accent, and he persuaded me into let me come back and we'll do a ghost adventure thing overnight. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And so we got a big crew together, and me and Adam had started sharing stories with him of things, because we're always working late at night. And one night I was working late at night, and I was painting the floor before we did this renovation. I would paint the floor gray to freshen things up, and you could only do that at night. And I got to the back of the store, kind of painted myself to the back of the store, and I heard a child run across the floor. So I go, okay, well, that's enough painting for tonight. I put everything away and I went to bed. That was good for me. I was alone. I didn't want to do that. And then another time, I was working in the back room again late at night, and I heard an old-timey cash register. You know how they would make like a cha-ching type of, like that metal-y type of sound. And again, I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I'm gonna go to bed now. So I told them those stories, and when we did the Ghost Adventures, we sat in the George Reeves section for probably 2 hours, and they asked questions, and words were coming out, and it was a lot of fun, and that video's up on YouTube, I believe. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and we like doing stuff like that, and we'd love to do more of that type of stuff.
The building is haunted. There's no question. I mean, I have seen something, if you've got a couple of hours or whatever, but there's been a lot of incidences because of the material in the building, not necessarily from the building itself, but from the material that was put in the building relating to George and so forth. There was just so much of it.
Yeah, we pulled a few of George's personal belongings, and they put all their ghostometer type stuff out, and we just sat there and asked questions in the dark, and we had a lot of fun with that. And then I would say, a lot of these items were children's items, so they're things that came from different people over time. So yeah, the possibility of the museum being haunted or specific items being haunted it's pretty entertaining. Do we have any other questions? Why don't you share? Okay. Sorry.
Jim, so talk about some of your conversations that you've had with anybody from like the Marvel comics or anything like that, or
yeah, let's talk
like
about Stan Lee.
Stan
Yeah.
Lee would be a good one.
Stan Lee and I conversed several times via telephone, and I had contacted him one time about an idea that I had for a superhero island with a restaurant. And I wanted to do it with DC characters, and I had shared that with him because I wanted his opinion on what was going on with it and what could happen, or what did he think about the idea or whatever. And he liked the idea so much that without asking, he went ahead and did it in Marvel characters. And so that if you remember that years ago, that idea actually came from me scribbling on paper, wondering, and then also Kingdom Come had a couple of
The restaurant.
Ross had a couple of drawings of the restaurant. That kind of flared up everything for me.
Yeah. So yeah, really, we moved here to do the Superman land. That was the goal, the vision. That's why he teamed up with Bob Westerfield. And I got to meet Neil Adams back in 2017, and we have the original drawings off just like a...
All the images like on the water
placemat.
tower and different parts of town.
Yeah.
It's all Neil Adams.
Yeah. And then there's a book called The Amazing World of Superman, the Metropolis edition, and it has sketches and concepts for this theme park where Superman is larger than life, and you walk between his legs to go into the theme park, and it was such a beautiful concept. I remember as a kid.
The cave picked around the whole theme park.
Yeah.
It was like a Matterhorn Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
You could go through or whatever and see the museum and of all the galactic animals and creatures and so forth that he had collected over the years.
Everything would be interactive. And then he's got this great idea for like a Bizarro park where nothing operates the way it normally does. Everything kind of works backwards. Yeah.
Cedar towers going up and down or sideways or whatever. And a hot dog and a hamburger bun or a hamburger and a hot dog. Yeah.
Hi, this
It's
is
easy stuff, you know.
Hi, this is John from New Jersey. Hi, guys.
Hi, so happy to see you.
Yeah, we always love coming here. And you know something?
Yeah.
The reason why we all started coming here was because of your museum.
Yeah.
It is still the highlight of the trip. It's the nicest museum we've ever gone to
thank
throughout
you.
the country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys always update where every time we go through, it's always something new to do.
Like an Easter egg hunt, right?
Yeah.
It's funny you would say that because we always, in fact, our kids always like it because even though they're still older, we still do it. Like, we always do a scavenger hunt, like find Superman underoos or different things like that, and kids go out and look for it. And the question I have is a couple of things, because I know you mentioned that you do have the original Superman suit from 1951, the black and white one, and down the road, you do plan to put that on display?
Yeah, I actually have 5 suits.
Wow.
And I've switched them out over the years when we put them on tour because you don't want to give one too much action because they're delicate
wool.
or whatever. But yeah.
And where would if they ever built the amusement park, wasn't it originally planned to be where Harrah's is now?
No, so our original plan, if you know where the Holiday Inn is out there on the interstate, there's a building, I believe it's a Catco building now. So they built that building and there was supposed to be a grand fountain. So the museum was going to be the first part of that. And then they would build one attraction after another around that
Phase
museum
1, Phase
concept.
2, Phase 3.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's great.
And it's the building, and the other
Yeah,
building.
so that's why that building, if you look at it, it's kind of shaped like the Hall of Justice, slightly. And there's a billboard inside of the museum and the Doomsday Room behind the Sharper Image Superman statue, if you know all these statues. But it's a life-size statue 8-foot statue. And it was going to be called the Superman Museum in the Great Hall of Justice. Great Hall of Heroes, yeah, Great Hall of, sorry. And that concept was all put together, and that billboard was made before we got here. So that was a project that was going that we didn't quite get to complete. But we're lucky that we got to keep our museum and our family and do it this way, because we've really built up from nothing.
It's difficult, but when you think,
to where we're at.
and you all can relate to this, when you have a hobby like this, where you're committed to having the biggest and the best and the all the rest, and it's like, it's a tough thing to be able to earn money selling the things that you collect. What do you keep? And my rule has always been, if I've got more than one, that's the only time it goes up for sale. And so now, when we look at a lot of the items, they're like individual items that, so what if I got 5 costumes? Each one is different. Each one did a different thing, So all of a sudden it breaks down into, there's a major difference. It's like a thumbprint, there is a difference.
Well, because every suit is individually sewn and handmade, especially with the George Reeves stuff. So if you watch each episode, you're going to be able to see telltale signs at different points usually in the shield. There's a couple episodes where George's cape has small holes in it. You can fingerprint a costume to different stuff, and that's something that's always interesting.
The shape of the S, where it's cut differently. It was all done by hand.
And they'll do things like, sometimes they'll sew the outside of the S because they're doing it just quick. Sometimes they'll fold it under and have a clean, seamless design. So it's interesting because of what we love, the behind the scenes, the prop type of stuff. What kind of fingerprints an item? So there's a kryptonite from Superman 3 on display, and that kryptonite is used in multiple scenes. Well, they made multiple ones. But we know for a fact that ours was used in the office and was held by Lex Luthor, and when he picked it up off the desk...
It was stuck to a piece of paper, and it was the same paper that was still stuck to it when I ended up with it.
So if you freeze frame that scene, you see exactly where the paper was stuck to it, because the resin stuck to it, and they just left it in the scene.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. This is Alex.
Hi, Alex.
How you guys doing?
Great.
First thing is, how old is that building? The whole building, 1909?
So the gift store half is 1909, and the other half, it was...
Yeah, this is 2 buildings.
1933. So it's been multiple things. I found out through Metropolis history, because I'm involved in the Metropolis history group. I'm restoring the museum. Me and my husband, we also bought a historic home in town, one of the really well-known homes, and we've been restoring that. But through researching the history of the building, it's a Mesker, and the Meskers were out of St. Louis, and they make those iron facades that, make historic
Pillars
downtowns.
and trim to the top.
So it was formerly a house?
No, the museum was, it's funny, it's really funny. I found out it was called at one point Morgan's General Store. So, sometimes you find things in life that tell you, wow, I meant to be here, and that was one of the things for me,
Wow. The second thing is, with Jim, after you found that proof from Leonore Lemmon, the fact that she killed George Reeves, did anybody ever think about changing the coroner's report?
Yeah, we tried to do that, and they said that her testimony that I ended up with was not credible enough, that she was a known alcoholic and that they couldn't use it. And 3 days after I got that information, she had died.
Hey, Jim, what do you think the real reason behind the cover-up? Was it just that the police were so inept in Los Angeles?
It was her association with organized crime, George being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And there was over almost 20 people there that night, not 4. And I had got the license plate of all the cars and vehicles that were there. And it took them a half hour to move everybody out. And there was people there that knew what was going on. Jim Backus, Henny Backus, There was Robert Condon, I know all their names, and Shirley MacLaine was there.
Jim Backus was actually there
Yeah.
that night?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just recently found out Shirley MacLaine was there because the nephew of the police officer that was on duty has reached out to my dad, and he's been talking to him about some of the evidence that that was covered up.
You know, because the really sorry part of that is he was such a great man and had to go out with such a horrible thing as
Well,
suicide.
it's such a
Can you
traumatic
imagine what he would think now if he saw all this?
Yeah.
Yeah, but how does Larson?
Because
Jack
the
Larson,
headline they used was Superman kills himself.
but how does Jack Larson to this day? Well, whatever.
Yeah.
To this day, he said both. I was involved in television interviews where he made an appearance, like on the Tom Snyder Show and other shows, the Long Beach Show, a couple of Long Beach shows, and no, it was almost like what day of the week was it? Because every day it would change.
Because he really stuck to the suicide thing for some reason.
Well,
were they friends?
towards the end, he did. I've got interviews where he swore up and down George didn't kill himself.
What was their relationship between Jack Larson and George
They were
Reeves?
friends on
They
and
were
off
friends.
set.
So they remained friends throughout the entire filming of the show?
They lost touch with in 1958 after the last season.
And one last question. I can ask
Jack
one
was
question.
here. He was here. He liked it so much that he got a check for $5,000
For his appearance.
For his appearance. He signed it and handed it over to me and says, "Put that in your bank."
Wow. And
Yeah.
lastly, with because don't forget, George Reeves is that one major iconic thing besides Superman is the appearance on the Isle of Lucy show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any props from that at all?
No, nothing from there because she wore a partial costume, and George had his costume on, but it's wet during most of the shooting, so it's hard to tell what costume that is. But if we did have it, would be the costume, one of the costumes that he wore.
So he does have a lot of his personal belongings. He has a ring that he wore all the time, and he actually accidentally wore it on the TV shows several times.
The brown glasses, tortoise shell, which are popular now these days, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And the glasses, the holder for the glasses, the case.
His poker set, his personal
His
poker
breakaway
set.
shirt, a Clark Kent
His
shirt,
handkerchief. Yeah.
canasta set,
A painting.
his
he had in
album
his
collection.
living room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Conquistador.
Yeah.
I even like that group picture you have of the cast and the crew.
Oh, half of them are drunk out of
Oh,
their
he-
minds.
He has his SAG card too, right?
I got John Hamilton doing this.
Well, thanks a lot, Jim. What else?
Well, we're glad to have you again. Really appreciate you showing up and taking the time. And you could go anywhere, and you choose to come here, and we appreciate that, and we hope that it continues and gets bigger and better. Because you
You
make
guys
it that
come
way.
again and
You guys
again.
come here, a lot of you work. You come here, you work your butts off.
Yeah.
And I notice that kind of stuff, and we really appreciate it. Because without the volunteers and without the super friends, it don't mean nothing. But I thank you for that.
Well, thank you every year for coming and hosting shows up here on the main stage.
It means a
Yeah.
lot. It really does.
Thank you, Chris, as well. Yeah.
All of you.
Yeah.
It got flooded.
We had a pipe break.
It'll open under another location under a different name with different things going on. And we're looking at a miniature golf course and some other things like that.
Well, yeah,
we
we-
just put this spear. Have y'all seen the big globe that's down the street here? We're doing little things to kind of fill in the gap because gravel roads aren't too pleasant to look at. So we're doing what we can.
So my dad's gone through in the past 3 years. He's had some health issues. I don't know if you guys knew, but he had a heart attack and a stroke, and it's kind of a miracle that he's even here with us and that he's able to walk because he's been through a lot. So we kind of put the Hollywood Museum on hold until we could get together as a family to where we know he's okay. So we're so grateful that he's here, and he's a fighter. He's a Superman. He's come back from near death 2 or 3 times. He's really scared us multiple times. And
I don't mind being called the Christmas miracle.
Yeah. he's like a cat. Yeah.
You do look great.
Taxidermist did a great job. Is that what you're saying?
Does anyone else have any other questions? Zelda. He's my dad, yeah. Your grandpa.
Hi, Zelda. Well, we appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
There's other things going on.
Let's talk about some of the things we plan to do in the future here in town. Things we'd really like to do. So I call myself an artist. I laid out the paint design for the museum building, and me and my husband we painted the outside of the building to theme the entire building. I'm passionate about historic buildings and historic homes and stuff like that, and preserving Metropolis as well as the history of Superman. And so we came up with the paint concept for the building, and then we also did I painted the Bob's Burger, the Super Bob down the street, and the Super Maryland, and
Yeah, people like that thing. It's fun.
what I would like to do would be to get a group together and that we start some new mural.
Create some new projects.
Create some new projects in town, some mural projects. My dad's
We're not done yet.
Yeah. He's installed this globe down the street, but maybe some people don't realize that the globe that was in front of the Metropolis planet was a project he did. And tell them what it's made out of, Dad. The planet globe.
Oh,
A barge tie-off.
yeah, it's a barge. Yeah. Right.
So my dad got this idea. He saw this barge tie-off. Where did you find that at?
At the shipyard.
At the shipyard. So he went to the shipyard and he goes, this thing kind of looks like a Daily Planet. I see it. He's always been a visual thinker. And so he got together with some people in the community, a man named...
Actually, it was the college.
Yeah, a man named Floyd McIntosh, who used to be one of the good old boys in town. People called him Cowboy. And they went down to Shawnee Community College to the welding department.
And talked him into putting Planet on there.
And my dad came up with the drawing to turn that into the Metropolis Planet globe icon in front of the
sat in
newspaper.
front of the Metropolis Planet for what?
25 years? Yeah. And
now
now that's in
it's out
front
on
of
the
the Lois
street.
Lane statue.
Yeah.
And then he's also the one that came up with the idea of the giant kryptonite rock. He was one of the people that was involved with designing the Superman statue and that concept, and the Lois Lane statue.
I was on the committee.
And back in '93, when we first moved here, there was a building that his friend and him, what was your friend's name? That painted the mural?
Oh, his name was Jeff.
Jeff. Okay.
No, Lynn Becker.
Lynn Becker.
Yeah.
So he was a mural painter, and he had actually found out he had cancer, and that project was his last project. And my dad climbed up on the scaffolding and helped paint that mural. There was an Action Comics
And his
mural.
wife said that added probably 10 years to his life.
So that mural was two stories tall, and my dad helped paint that mural. And sadly, in 2002, that building was hit by a tornado. We're in the Midwest,
It went
and the
down.
building had to be torn down. So one of the projects I'd like to work on
There's a
is
new
to
Action Comics mural. Yeah.
bring that mural back, and other mural projects would be great to do some improvements of beautification to Metropolis and to spread it out so there's more things to see when you're walking around.
So there's
town.
plenty of work to do, so grab a paintbrush and roll up your sleeves and get on out of here.
Yeah.
No, we realize you folks have a life too, you know.
Yeah.
And again, you coming here shows a lot of respect, and I appreciate that.
All right. Well, we have 10 more minutes if there's any more questions. Sure.
Oh. Oh,
What's his name? Tanner. Wow.
is he available? Or? Okay. Does it keep him motivated? He like he has a good time with it? That's great.
Thank you.
You're making me feel old. That's great. Thank
But
you.
funny you bring up adoption. We've had orphanages and different people reach out, foster care people, and they use the story of Superman coming
Well,
from Krypton
what
and
about-
being
what about,
adopted
what about Josh?
to explain to people's to the kids and the families.
What about Josh? The current Superman.
Oh, Josh has been coming
kid.
since he was a small
I
child.
was 11 years old. He
Yeah.
come to me. I was indoors painting one day. He said, "Mr. Hambrick," he said, "one of these days I'm going to be Superman." And I looked at him. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's great. I hope so. I hope it will
Yeah,
work
so we
out.
have a picture of Josh somewhere.
And he came
11
back
years
about
old
8
in our
years
museum.
later and said, "Mr. Hambrick,
Hey, Morgan and Jim,
do you remember me?"
what do you plan to do with the second floor? Because I know you do have that elevator in the back that was a freight elevator.
Yeah, so people have asked about the Americana Hollywood. Our goal for the second floor would be to move the Justice League collection upstairs.
Superpowers, Justice League,
And to
Super
expand
Friends.
and have all of our DC stuff in one building under one roof.
The rest of the Super Friends. So we've got probably the largest Super Friend collection in the world.
And then we want to
You
do
haven't seen that yet.
So Keith Howard did Lucy Meets Superman skit, and we have all the backdrop pieces and stuff that he had
We're gonna
built just for
incorporate it
that
into
skit
the
for the
design of the
celebration.
room.
And so we'd like to set up an area for photo ops and have people set your camera into black and white and take some pictures, in the amazing Adventures of Superman set. Yeah.
So give yourselves a round of applause,
Thank you for coming.
because without you it wouldn't happen. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Since you have, the new giant Superman statue out here, is there any part of the original statue that's still left?
Yes, someone locally has it in a storage container, and we've been trying to acquire it since,
Let's put it
1995.
this way, it's working motion and I ain't telling you where it is.
Do you hope to add that to the museum?
We
if
do.
If
We
it
do
wasn't
one
for the
day.
old, if it wasn't for the old one, the new one wouldn't be here. So,
Yeah, we'd
But
love,
it's huge,
we'd
like
love to
22
pay homage to just different parts of Metropolis.
It got shot at more than it did taking pictures.
Yeah, it was made out of fiberglass. It had a couple bullet holes in it, honestly, yeah. We definitely had a major upgrade with the giant Superman statue in the square. And we just celebrated the anniversary of the unveiling on the 5th of the giant Superman statue. So that's 29 years old. We showed up at the same time, so our museum's 29 years old. So we're both next year celebrating the 30th anniversary of being here and being with the statue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One question about your Christopher Reeves suits. How many of those do you actually own, Jim?
Several.
And one follow-up question too. We went in and saw the Lost in Space robot that you've got. Where in the world did you find something like that? Is there a story behind acquiring that?
Well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. I mean, so.
I've lived a good life.
No, that came from a bunch of Lost in Space junkies that couldn't find the parts that I could find, so we put it together as a basket case.
The other statue in there, the Maria statue.
Yeah, that's one of only three. That was Forey Ackerman who coined the phrase sci-fi. And Forey got together with me. We were supposed to do a museum in Cleveland. And they flew us out there and wined and dined us and do it next to a place they were going to call Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Anybody ever hear that? Anyway, we were supposed to be next to them at the Greyhound bus depot, and we were having lunch with Forey one day, and they were out there unloading the truck, and they had one of the heads that Forey had, because he was a famous monster guru, godfather of famous monsters, and they were playing basketball with a Bela Lugosi head. And he said, what is that? He's bouncing up and down. I said, basketball. He goes, no, take a good look. It was a Bela Lugosi latex head. And these kids were tossing it back and forth like a basketball. And he was sitting there. And this is his whole donation, all his sci-fi collection, millions and millions of dollars. I mean, he had Dracula's cave and his ring. And he had a lot of stuff. Anyway, he had a couple of them made, a couple of pulls made off of the mold, and I ended up with one of them, and he ended up with one, and then there was one left that went for sale or whatever. But there's only 3 of those known to exist. Period. The Maria statue. And the irony there is about Metropolis. It's man versus machine. You know that it's where they got the idea. George Reeves got the idea for C-3PO because it's so similar, in stature. And so we're gonna work on a tribute to Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis from 1926. That's gonna be another edition.
Yeah, because this is the only Metropolis.
Yeah, I've got all the stuff. So.
All right, we got
Anybody
about
else?
3 minutes left. She has a question. Oh, hello. Hi. Your mom's very proud of you.
Yeah. You've been here, you come here, how old were you when you first came?
3.
3 years old?
Wow.
Wow. How old are you now?
27.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you for coming back
Yeah.
all this time.
What's your favorite thing about the museum? Or not the museum, but Metropolis? Everything, you like it? Well, we like having you, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions about any of the items on display or anything like that?
Sorry. In the Supergirl section, there's like a sash that has an insect on it.
Oh, okay.
I was
so that
wondering
was
what that
actually
was
used in an episode of Married with Children. So Kelly was the Verminator, and that's a Verminator
It looks
costume.
like Supergirl,
and we
so-
have that on display because the ties to Married with Children. Jean LeBell was the
One of the wrestlers, whenever
so he was
Al
a stunt coordinator for
whenever
Married
he
with
would
Children.
show up in a bar, the bar
When there'd be
scene,
bar
when they started
fights.
fighting, The
Yeah.
guy with the striped shirt was Jean LeBell. Jean LeBell taught George Reeves all his wrestling moves and all.
Yeah.
And also his mother had the Olympic Auditorium.
What was it, Jiu-Jitsu or? Yeah. So if you go in there in the Mr. Kryptonite costume and you look at the boots, they're not boots. They have, they're like this. They look like Ninja Turtle toes because he did Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah.
And Jean LeBell, he was
was
the
a
only
tough
guy.
guy.
He was the only guy that Bruce Lee was afraid to fight.
He's trained a lot of famous people. If you look up Jean LeBell, he's trained a lot of famous wrestlers. Yeah. He's really well known. He's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive.
I'd love to have him here at the celebration. I don't know how
He was
old
Mr.
is.
Kryptonite.
Yeah. Yes.
Was he the character that what Tarantino used in the movie that beat up Bruce Lee and the Swanee? Okay. But it's based on him.
Yeah. Yes, Zelda. Zelda, I'm sorry. It's not. There's no ghost.
And we've never done this before, folks, so thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah. So this is our first Q&A.
Do we have any last questions? Any other questions before we wrap up? I think we can do about one more. Anything? Okay.
Okay.
Can you tell us your conversation with Leonore Lemmon?
Oh, well, my conversation was by proxy because I didn't want her to know that we were on tour. So I had somebody become friends with her. And it took about 6 months for her to gain enough trust to talk about the situation. And when she did, we had an audio confession. National Enquirer's offered me $150,000 for the tapes. And I wouldn't do that. That would be too much exposure for George in certain areas. It's nobody's business and so forth. But yeah, we got it on tape.
All right, guys, so I guess that's it. And thank you for joining us. If you guys want to do photo ops or any of that, we'll probably be down the street at Hidden Gems at our mini-con. The museum is freshly renovated, so please come in and take a tour. It looks a lot better than the last time you've been through, if you haven't been through in a couple years.
How about the folks that have been, or you agree, it's a lot better?
Thank you.